Beginning, the marriage decree. The halls of the Aurelian throne shimmered like liquid gold beneath the twin sons of Vera. The alien queen, Tir'ana Vera IX, ruler of the Empire of 1,000 Moons, stood before her council with a gaze sharp enough to cut through titanium. War had been draining her empire for decades. Humanity had arrived at the edges of the Veran territories, desperate for resources, arrogant with technology, and unwilling to bow. The queen had tried diplomacy, then domination. Neither had worked. So she turned to an ancient, cruel solution, a political union. Her daughter, Princess Kaelira, was to marry a human, Commander Jace Arden of the United Earth Federation. Kaelira had protested for days, her voice echoing through the throne halls. "You cannot bind me to one of them, Mother. They destroyed our moons, they burned our fleets." The Queen's response was cold. "You are my blood, Kaelira. You are not meant to love. You are meant to serve the Empire." That night, as the city lights of Vera pulsed across the skyline, the princess looked toward the stars where Earth hung like a distant spark and whispered, "If this is destiny, may the stars remember it was forced." The human groom. Commander Jace Arden had never been more uncomfortable in his life. He stood in the heart of an alien palace, surrounded by creatures who could read his heartbeat through the air. The Verans were tall, luminous beings, their skin a faint iridescent silver, their eyes swirling with light. He was the first human to walk freely through their capital, and he was about to marry one of them. The arrangement had been made after the signing of the Treaty of Coexistence. On paper, it symbolized peace. In truth, it was a cage for both of them. The ceremony was cold and formal. The Queen watched from her high throne, her expression unreadable. Kaelira barely looked at Jace, her golden eyes hard with fury. When the crown's bioluminescent tendrils linked their auras together, a sign of binding, Jace felt the spark of her soul. It was like touching a storm. When the ceremony ended, the Queen simply said, "The union is complete. May it bring peace to both worlds." Neither of them believed her. Middle, the cold union. They were given a residence on the outskirts of Vera City, surrounded by shimmering forests and endless night skies. Kaelira barely spoke to him. She spent hours meditating in silence, her energy glowing faintly. Jace, a soldier used to chaos, struggled to adjust to her alien stillness. But the Veran palace guards monitored them constantly. The Queen's envoys checked for progress. It wasn't a marriage, it was surveillance. One evening, Jace broke the silence. "You hate me," he said. "No," Kaelira replied quietly. "I hate the one who made this choice for us." He nodded. "We have that in common." From that night, they began to talk. About the war. About the planets they'd lost. About how both sides had killed for pride. Days turned into weeks. Slowly, Kaelira began to laugh at his clumsy humor, and Jace began to learn her language. He discovered that her world wasn't cold, it was suffocating under her mother's rule. And one night, beneath the glowing auroras of Vera, she whispered. When the Queen bound our auras, she thought it was a leash. "But I feel your thoughts, Jace. You're not my enemy." That was the first night they kissed. The Queen's discovery. Months passed. Their bond deepened. But peace was fragile. Queen Tir'ana began to notice changes. Kaelira no longer attended council meetings, and human ships were patrolling closer to her borders. Rumors reached her ears. The princess and the human were in love. That word, to the Queen, was poison. She summoned her advisors. "Find out what is done to her," she commanded. Humans use manipulation like a weapon. Her spies returned with something far worse, evidence that Kaelira and Jace were planning to flee. The Queen's fury shook the palace. She would betray her empire for him? Then let her see what humans truly are. She ordered Jace arrested. The arrest. They came for him at dawn. The palace guards stormed the residence, their weapons humming with energy. Kaelira awoke to chaos, Jace dragged from their bed, shouting her name. She fought them, unleashing a burst of psychic light that shattered the walls. But even her power couldn't stop them. The queen appeared as Jace was restrained, her golden armor gleaming. "You were a fool to think love could redeem you," Tir'ana said to her daughter. "You taught me that love is weakness," Kaelira spat. "But maybe that's why your heart is dead." The queen's gaze hardened. "Then watch your weakness die." She turned to her soldiers. "Take him to the spire." The Spire of Silence, a fortress where no one returned. The escape. Kaelira was confined to her chambers. Her connection to Jace, once bright, grew faint, like a candle smothered by wind. She felt his pain through their aura link, the same bond her mother had created. It became her weapon. Using the bond as a map, she tracked him across the psychic plane, finding his location deep within the spire. She broke free that night, her power burning like a second sun. Inside the spire, she tore through guards and defenses, leaving trails of light and destruction. Jace, weakened and bruised, looked up in disbelief as the door burst open and she stood there glowing, fierce, divine. "You came," he breathed. "You are my choice," she said simply. They escaped into the Varen wilderness, hunted by the Queen's army. The war returns. When news of the escape reached the Queen, her fury turned to fear. The aura bond she'd forged between them was reacting unpredictably. The energy from Kaelira's rebellion had begun to ripple across Vera, causing electrical storms, gravity surges, and atmospheric distortions. The Queen's advisors begged her to destroy the bond. But doing so meant killing her daughter. Meanwhile, Kaelira and Jace hid among the abandoned moons of the outer system. They found an old communication relay and contacted Earth. "We can end this," Jace said. "If we expose what the Queen has done. She'll never stop hunting us," Kaelira warned. "Then we fight her," he said. It was the first time in history that a human and a Varen stood united not by treaty, but by love. The Queen's fall. When the Queen's fleet cornered them near Moon 47V, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. Kaelira stood beside Jace on the command deck of a stolen Varen warship. Outside, the Queen's flagship loomed, a golden leviathan. "You don't have to do this," Jace said softly. "She took everything from me," Kaelira replied. "But I'll make her see the truth." They opened a transmission. "Mother," Kaelira said, her voice echoing through the void. "You once told me love was weakness. Look around you. Your empire is dying because you forgot compassion." The Queen's face appeared on the screen, cold as stone. "You have doomed us, child. You and that human have infected our bloodline with chaos." Kaelira's eyes glowed. "Then let the stars judge whose chaos saves the galaxy." She reached out, merging her psychic power with Jace's neural interface. Their minds and energies fused, the aura bond erupting into light. The explosion that followed was not fire, it was transformation. Across the fleet, systems failed, energy fields collapsed, and the skies of Vera rippled like broken glass. The Queen's ship was crippled, thrown into the planet's orbit. She barely survived the crash. When she awoke among the ruins, the war was over. Ending fate's punishment.